All right, it is 5:30 then. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order and ask Sandra to record the attendance. And while she's doing that, I'll ask participating board members to please review the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I will then entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
I move to accept the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I second.
Was that Renee?
Yes.
All right, very good. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on then to Article 3, approval of the minutes of the May 18, 2021 meeting. Please take a look through those if you have not yet had the opportunity to do so. And then I'd like someone to please make a motion to approve those minutes.
I will also move to approve the minutes from the, what was the date here? The May 18th meeting, yeah.
Very good.
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I see nodding. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, a unanimous approval of the minutes, which brings us to Article 4, which is the point of our meeting where we acknowledge visitors and invite them to speak about items that are either on or not on our agenda. Sandra, do we have any visitors in the waiting room?
We do not have any visitors right now.
All right, then that's easy enough to deal with, and we'll move on then to Article 5, which is a discussion and consideration of the rapid bus contract. You might recall that at our last meeting, we tabled the issue of the bus contract so that we could gather more information. So our first order of business needs to be a motion from a board member to remove that bus contract consideration from the table. It's a Robert's Rule of Order thing. So if someone would be willing to make that motion to remove consideration of the bus contract from the table, that would be awesome.
I'll make a motion to remove the bus contract for consideration from the table.
Perfect. Any support for that
I'll
motion?
second.
Thanks, Steve. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thanks for tolerating that. Robert's Rules of Order are so fun. Let's now have another conversation about the rapid bus contract. And I don't know whether Ben or Sandra would like to take lead on giving us an update about kind of where we were and the additional information that we have for consideration tonight. So I'll punt to you two.
Do you want me to go, Ben, or would you like to go?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Why don't you go first, Sandra, on the
Okay.
additional items you included, and then I can talk about the items that I sent out.
Okay, all right. So, you know, as you talked about, we did discuss this at our May 18th meeting. This is the long-term contract for the rapid bus service. And at that meeting, representatives from the Rapid did state to us that the contract dates would need to be revised. So tentatively, those dates are going to be October 1st through May 9th, and Ben may be able to provide a little more information on that. But that is the time frame really that the Rapid is going to use to evaluate and monitor this revenue service program. So also at the May meeting, the DDA board did request additional information. Some of that was some information on how to reduce the cost of the service, whether that was, you know, shortening the route or shortening up the hours of the service and so forth. So there is some information in your packet that we received from the Rapid with dollar amounts and then some parameters. And Then again, I guess he'll talk about that. He also provided some information on the Go Bus versus the Hope Network. So just to reiterate, the reason we're talking about this here is the Township Board has voted that in order for the rapid bus service to continue, the DDA must provide 100% of the funding for this 28th Street route, which I think is actually going to be the 29th Street route now. So tonight, what we are looking for is a decision on this long-term contract for the rapid bus. Initially, if you remember, the rapid reps wanted the decision before or by June 1. They then advised us that we could put it off until tonight's meeting, June 15th. But they do need that decision tonight. They need to put together, staffing and routes and so forth. So that is what we are looking for this evening.
So I'll add in some information there too. I think to start off, I think the term long-term contract is probably just a little misleading because as Sandra did mention, the Rapid is only committed to this revenue model for a year from when that decision was made. So this would be a 7-month contract, basically from October, even probably more like 6.5, because it would end sometime in the middle of May. However, the expectation would be that analysis would be over in early 2022. And once again, the DDA would be able to make a decision at that point. So I think the crux of the information that really the DDA wanted, the board wanted, was what are the models that we could possibly use to reduce the cost further. And if you were at the last meeting, Nick and Max did talk about the fact that shortening the route really wasn't an option. And that was more because of shortening the route would eventually mean that the ITP would be picking up more of the cost of the route than the DDA would actually be picking up. And that would really go against the policy that allowed them to have the revenue model in place. But what they did talk about was actually changing the times that the service is available, because that would be a direct cost reduction for both the township and the ITP on the same level. So they did offer the 4 options and then put the cost in there both as the contract costs. So what we were talking about October 1 through May 9th, and then just for a better point of reference, an annualized cost too. So if we weren't talking about a shorter contract, if we were talking about a full contract, what that cost would look like. The current service to have what we call full service. So basically weekday, 30-minute all day, Saturday, 60-minute in the morning, 30-minute midday, 60-minute in the evening, and then Sunday 60-minute cost. That contract cost for October 1 through May 9 is just over $150,000, so 151. And then you can see there's some cost reductions based on backing some of those out. So the first item was that they took the weekday service that would normally be 30 minutes all day. They made it 30-minute until 7 p.m. and then 60-minute after 7 p.m. and didn't touch the Saturday service or the Sunday service. So that change is going to save about $13,000 to $14,000 a year. If we reduce the weekday, evening, and Saturday service, so the same weekday service, and then for Saturday, instead of having that midday 30-day service, made it 60-minute all day, there's a further reduction of about $6,000. And then if we went to that same weekday service and Saturday service and eliminated the Sunday service completely, there's another reduction of about $10,000. So some steps there, but there's basically a difference in option 1, which is the current service, and option 4, which is the biggest reduction in service, of about $30,000 a year, again, for that October 1 through May 9 service period. And if you looked at that as an annualized cost, so if we were talking about a full year contract, that savings would be just short of about $50,000 a year. So another set of information that was asked was really kind of, what the Go Bus and Hope Network cost was. And so I provided that memo on Monday for you guys to give some review. Jennifer did ask me some questions, and I thought were relevant. So I will probably ask myself these questions and answer them, just so you guys can kind of have the information too. So the first question was that the understanding is that the Go Bus is provided at no additional cost to the township for ADA eligible riders. Is there an additional charge to the riders? And if so, what is that charge? And does the township cover any part of that additional charge? So that is correct. Just like the line haul service, there is a charge for the people that ride that. There is a direct charge to the people that ride the Go Bus as well. So if you qualify as an ADA eligible rider, the cost of a Go Bus ticket is $3.50. And if you're not an ADA eligible rider, but you're over the age of 65, you can also take it for an $8 cost. And the township does not cover any portion of that. So that ridership charge is charged entirely to the riders. For comparison's sake, the Hope Network riders, they have to pay a $5. It's technically a $5 charge. However, the township covers $1 of that in order to bring the cost closer to the same charge as the Go Bus. So from the rider's end, a Go Bus ticket costs $3.50. A Hope Network ticket costs $4. So one of the more complicating question was, assuming that the DDA decides to execute the bus contract, is there any savings to the township that can be leveraged by the Go Bus transportation over the Hope Network transportation? So interestingly enough, up to about 2 years ago, I would have said absolutely. And in fact, in the monthly or the quarterly reports we put together, we had a specific report that explained what the savings were having the Go Bus in the township. And that was in a previous form of Hope Network funding, where the township got this little sliver of CDBG funds. It was about $7,200. And then after that was expended, the township covered all of the subsidized costs, $18.50, 15 cents a ride. What happened with the countywide, or I should really say the township's wide CDBG funding, is now instead of signing little slivers of funding to all of these different townships, they've basically said that there's $144,000 in CDBG funding available for this service, and anybody can tap into it at any point. So what that did was it opened up a whole pool of funding for Cascade riders to tap into. And now Cascade is really only responsible for any rides over 20 rides per person per month. And for the Go Bus riders, we typically have 1 or 2 people that go over that. It's not a huge amount. So the savings for having the Go Bus to the township really isn't there anymore, unless that CDBG funding dries up, right? So the caveat in that is that this funding model was changed, and we didn't even have a full year in the new funding model before COVID hit, and the need for rides was dialed way back. So we don't know if this new funding model has created a new demand for ridership in the greater area yet. Just as a caveat, that funding was put together, that funding model was put together because the county as a whole was leaving money on the table, right? Cascade Township, we chewed up all of our CDBG funding, and then put an additional $60,000 to $70,000 a year of general fund money into that to fund that service. Whereas in some of the other townships, they may have had $10,000 worth of funding and only used $2,000. Well, then that $8,000 of funding didn't get used up. So this model was put together to make sure that funding is used every single year. And then there's the question, can part of the Go Bus cost be covered by the Kent County CDBG dollars? And it's just not an eligible expense. So that wouldn't be able to be used. So I know you have a ton of data in your packet. It can be overwhelming at times. If you have any questions about anything that's in there, I'm more than happy to try to answer it.
Thanks so much, Sandra and Ben. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions and comments by the board. We have some new information, and so it may be that some of you want to ask questions of either Sandra or Ben, and we also have Max participating in this meeting as well, so he can answer questions directed to the Rapid as well. So anyone who has any questions or comments that they'd like to raise, please do so now.
I have a question. It's Renee. Did we ever determine how many people actually are riding the bus? Like, did we ever come up with a number of people that are actually riding the bus?
We
into
do.
town?
Yeah.
I believe that ridership data was included in the packet, but I don't know how current that data is. I'm guessing Ben has updated information.
Yeah, so we did include 2021, 2019, and I believe 18 in there as well. So again, quite a bit of data. So I can go over the latest information we have, which is the 2021 first quarter ridership data. You get both the raw data, which is just a big Excel spreadsheet, and then I try to put that into a format that's easily digestible for you guys in the public as well. So should be noted that all this ridership data is still affected by COVID-19. So they're seeing that all over the system and all over the country. But so for first quarter 2021, we saw an average weekday ridership of 153 rides per day, an average Saturday ridership of 126 rides per day, and an average Sunday ridership of 70 riders per day. The next page of that ridership data goes in and talks about how that works out to, a subsidized rider cost. That's basically just a basic math problem. And then I think the next two pages are pretty interesting as well, especially given the possible cost reductions that were sent to us by the Rapid. You got the average boardings per hour for all days, and then the average stop data as well. So if you go to that third page, you can see that, you start at, 6 a.m. And you have 4.1, you average 4.1 boardings per day. That's people getting on in Cascade Township, 3.6 all the way up to the 4 p.m. Time. You got 6.6 people per hour that are boarding then, and then kind of going down and not a lot of people boarding at night. So that's good information to have if you guys are looking at any of those alternate service parameters provided by the Rapid.
And I would say that, I really appreciate having those options from the Rapid and, hope that we consider them. However, I'm pretty strongly against the concept of eliminating all Sunday service because we do have ridership on Sunday. Although it would save some money, I think that it would cause some problems for the businesses in the district to eliminate transportation on that day. So option 4 in that memo is one that I'm just not even really considering as appropriate, assuming we decide to go forward with the bus contract.
And Jennifer, I would agree with you. I was going to make that same statement. Again, just with the staffing situation, I think for all businesses, and after reading through many of the participants who sent information back to Sandra, and again, we've mentioned this before, that a lot of the hotels, their employees are the ones that are using the bus service. Even for myself, Sunday, to have people come in and work on Sundays is just generally to work on Sundays. It's not a day that they pick. And if they're also losing their transportation, it's going to hurt that business that much more. So I would agree that personally, I don't think option 4 is something that would benefit the township or the businesses within.
Is there a dissenting viewpoint on that? Because if we can kind of cross that off, it might help us advance our conversation. Hearing none, I'm going to assume that means that we're all in agreement that option 4 really isn't one that's up for consideration. So, I think that the place that we left the conversation last month was that we were in favor of pursuing the long-term bus contract. It was just a matter of dollars and schedule. So I'm kind of assuming that we're all on the same page with that, and that people haven't changed their minds and are now thinking that they're not willing to continue entertaining entering into this contract. So, and please interrupt me if I'm making an incorrect assumption, but I'd like to try to nail down which option in that memo is most appropriate for the contract going forward. And as been described, you know, the current service is weekday 30 minutes all day, Saturday 60 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes midday, 60 minutes in the afternoon, and Sunday 60 minutes. And there are two options for reducing that. I don't have a strong feeling between those two options. I think either would be appropriate, but I'd like to have further conversation with the board about whether you have questions or whether you have thoughts on either of those options. There would be a savings of a considerable amount of money, over $10,000 from the current contract cost, but then the difference between those, you know, option 2 and option 3 is only $6,000. So, you know, it should weigh into our consideration, but I think that we should make a determination about which of those options makes the most sense for both the businesses in our district and for the cost. Anybody have any questions about those options or any thoughts about it?
I guess the only question that I couldn't see the data was, again, as you're comparing option 2 and option 3, the big difference again is on that Saturday, where we're going from a 60-minute, 60-minute in the morning, 30-minute midday, 60-minute in the evening, to just 60 minutes all day long. So I don't know how much traffic or how much ridership is going on in the morning, and what morning means. I'm not sure either. Is that 6 to 10, or is that 6 to noon? So if there's clarification from you, Max, on if you could identify what morning means and what midday, what are the time frames within that?
Yeah, sure. Steve, are you speaking specifically to that Saturday? How we kind of, there's kind of 3 different service periods? Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I left it out there just for brevity to make sure my table wasn't too absurdly long. But basically what we're looking at, as I have the schedule pulled up here, is essentially that that morning, that AM 60-minute period basically goes from around 6:30 a.m. till around 10 o'clock in the morning. So then from 10 until roughly, we're looking at 6:30 is going to be that 30-minute service period. And then from 6:30 onward, that PM 60-minute period.
Okay.
And I'm looking at, oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, I was just going to say, do you have any, I didn't see anything detailed within the packet in terms of that 6 to 10:30 on Saturdays, and that after 7 o'clock to whatever, what kind of ridership is happening. Or I'm sorry, I guess it would matter what's happening during that midday, because if we were going to just shift it from the 60, 30, 60 to 60 all day, do we know how many people are going during that midday period?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. And Ben, the way we provide that ridership data to you is by the hour, and it's, I think, aggregated for all days. So I think what it is that it wouldn't really give us that nuance of exactly that Saturday ridership. That's something that we could certainly provide to you in the future for a future quarterly ridership reports if you so desire. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't have that off the top of my head. I could, within the course of this meeting, I could try to whip up some data for you on that, but I would kind of do it on the fly here. But so at this moment, I don't quite have that trend on Saturday specifically.
So
Max, I know
sorry.
Max, I know we talked about partnering us in the Rapid. You know, if the DDA does decide to approve this, you know, you guys have some direction from your board to gather data on the successfulness of the revenue model. While we're collecting that data, would be if the DDA chooses option 2 or option 3, would there be some way for us to collect data, whether that negatively affected, our riders that are on the bus too?
Yeah, that's an interesting proposition there. Are you thinking maybe like some sort of onboard survey of some kind?
Yeah, just to say, hey, see if we can get people to say, I got off work at 7:15 and I had to wait until 8 o'clock to catch the bus instead of 7:30 when it normally come around. Or maybe we find that, because it seems like Meyer has a lot of workers that are riding this, maybe then Meyer adjusts their shifts, for those people around the bus service. So, okay, yep, your shift ends at 7:45. So we know you can catch the 8 o'clock bus rather than shift ending at 7 o'clock. So, you don't get out to the, bus stop until 7:10 and you're waiting there for 50 minutes. It'd just be interesting to understand if any of these changes negatively affect people that are riding the bus.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I definitely think we could come up with some sort of survey instrument, and the Rapid would be more than happy to administer a survey like that. Yeah, absolutely.
And Max, if we were to make a change to that option 2 or 3, how would the Rapid communicate that new bus schedule to the current ridership?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, we're kind of going through this because we're making pretty wholesale changes across our system this coming August. So it would kind of fall right into some of these larger system-wide changes that we're making. So we'd be doing press releases, social media posts. We're also putting notices physically at stops. So like we call them kiosks. They're basically like little information panels, and we can put inserts inside of those to notify changes, or and in the case of like closing stops, which isn't really the case here, we can put hoods over them. So we have some techniques that we deploy for digital and kind of analog notifications. And also too, I think we could maybe work with some of the specific businesses like Meyer and reach out to them specifically to have them like specifically like their HRs or store directors who maybe have more close interaction with specific employees that use the bus routes. So that's certainly something that's in our wheelhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to say, to just kind of lead off of Ben's thoughts there in regards to, as a business owner, and if I have employees that are taking that bus, yeah, I would want to try to, one, find out who is taking it so that I can schedule them appropriately. Because I remember at one of my other locations to where we would let some of the youth out at 8 o'clock, and they're like, well, I got to leave on time because I have to be at the bus by 8:10. Otherwise I have to wait a whole nother half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever the case may be. So I think from whatever decision we make, either through the DDA and with Sandra's help, that we try to help communicate what the new route is going to look like, or the times are going to look like, that are going to impact the businesses in Cascade Township.
Agreed. And I'm not sure what the timing for the transition to the new schedule will be, but it would be nice if we were able to give them a little bit of a heads up before that cutover happens. So I don't know, Max, if if we decided to change the service to one of these other schedules, would that be something that we could expect would be changed in August when you roll out your other changes, or would it happen sooner than that? How would that work?
Yeah, so the current contract, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current contract runs through the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30 of 2021. Okay. So we would probably start noticing it. As I mentioned, we have a whole host of service changes coming up this coming August. So we'd probably start noticing it, maybe with some caveats that it wouldn't take effect until October 1. Because, if you do have the current contract, we definitely want to honor that because you paid for the service till the end of that contract period. It'd be a little awkward for us because typically we try to avoid making changes outside of kind of our service implementation windows, but we'll make it work. It's fine.
Max, just a quick question. I know they could be broad changes. You said you're having a number of service changes. Are you expanding service or are you contracting service? Or is it because it's such a large system, it's both? And what I'm getting at is trend lines of kind of how you are taking the business or the service and how you're changing it right now, if everything going on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Ben will have some knowledge of this as well. Over the last 18 months, the Rapid has been undergoing what we call in the industry as a comprehensive operational analysis, or COA. Basically, it's kind of this, 10,000-foot view of the entire system and making schedule adjustments and alignment tweaks to all fixed routes, considering all of them, not just individually in a vacuum, but the entire system as a whole. And we know when the pandemic hit, we had kind of some pivoting, but we were meeting with some of the Ben and some of the other folks and Sandra as well from Cascade to discuss some changes on Route 28. So as far as the scope of some of these changes, the COA is a budget neutral plan. So it's basically what funding do we have available now, and within those confines, how can we make tweaks and adjustments to improve on-time performance and encourage greater ridership. Those are kind of the two main goals of this project. So in terms of the level of service is going to remain the exact same, but what you'd see is things like a good example might be our Route 16 that serves the Wyoming Metro Health Facility from Central Station. It kind of provides that key link in the city of Wyoming. We'll be diverting that over to Rivertown Crossings Mall, where we're actually going to be bringing a few other routes there to create kind of a sort of a peripheral satellite transfer hub. So it's a lot of those types of tweaks. In terms of levels of service, we're not going to be increasing overall from it won't be a net increase. So if we're bumping up frequency on a route, that means we're bumping down frequency on another route. So that's the thing in transportation in a budget neutral scenario, everything's a trade-off. So, and then as far as trend lines and your point to that, we are looking at a situation where ridership activity is starting to gradually inch its way up. We're still quite a bit down. We're about 50% down of where we were this time 2 years ago before the pandemic. That's actually right in line with a lot of national trends of other transit agencies around the country. And that'd be big and small. So everywhere from your New York cities to, Kalamazoo, we're kind of right in the middle there. And we're kind of experiencing that same 50% dip. So, but our goal, especially with some of the federal relief funding that we've received, is to try to get our services back to pre-pandemic as much as we can to support the economic kind of return and recovery of the Grand Rapids metro region. It's one of those things. We provide a service, a public service where you kind of have to have it there. It's like a build it and you will come sort of thing. We're not like an airline where we can kind of measure ridership on a certain flight and say, oh, well, there's a lot of demand for this. Let's bump it up, or, oh, nobody's taking this flight from Chicago to Detroit. Let's cut it. It's in a lot of cases, even if we have lower performing routes, that's still somebody's access to a job. So yeah, overall the trend line inching up, and we're trying to get our service levels back to pre-pandemic, in a fiscally responsible manner. So it's not like we're just going to throw it out there all at once and exhaust all of our relief funding. It's we're kind of inching it back up in line with some of the increase of demand. So that was a really long-winded answer for your question. I hope I gave you some insights there.
You did. Thank you.
More information is always better than not enough information, right? Thank you for that.
One other question for the two changes that are proposed. We said, hey, the one of them's off the table. We all agree. And I'm working off a really small screen right now, so I can't pull things up on how I typically do. But from a percentage basis, Ben, for each one of the options over the whole contract of what it would be for the year, what's for us to make some of these, like option one or option two, what is the percentage savings? Because right now, when we're throwing around, say, $7,000 on a contract, I mean, it could be a rounding error, especially for someone like right now, we've spent $4,000 or $5,000 just trying to attract people to work. just let alone apply right now for jobs. To me, when we say we're going to save $5,000-7,000, and I'm a small business, spending that just to get people to work, it feels like a rounding error. But if we're talking about real percentages of maybe I'm missing something, so I can wrap my head around how meaningful the savings is. Does that make sense?
You got to keep talking for one more minute so I can finish the math.
Let him do math because I'm not doing math. So
Well, while you're doing math, I'll give directional information, and it's talking to a few business owners in the Cascade area and one actually in Kentwood. Literally, I could throw a football and I think they might be able to catch it if I had a good tailwind. But it is literally, if it's here or anywhere else, there is a labor shortage. It is what it is. And businesses are making decisions right now on what reducing menu or what have you. There's a lot of decisions going on. Hourly rates are going up as a result because supply and demand. The interesting thing about this pandemic is every quarter of the pandemic, there's some new challenge. Right now, it's the labor challenge. You're still having material challenges and other things. The big thing for me right now is there's a long tail to this. And the bus service does provide the opportunity for employees to get to their jobs. Unknown right now what the long-term impact is. Is it because of the unemployment benefits or not? But I feel right now that the bus service is an avenue for people to get to work, and it may become an even more important one as more and more people enter the workforce. And I think to Steve's point about the hotels, there's something there. The restaurants, we now have one employee that rides the bus now. It's actually a high school kid who joined the team. So 150 people riding doesn't seem like a lot, and it isn't. But that number could go up significantly. It's just so unpredictable right now what's going on. And I don't know, I mean, that's a little bit of conjecture there, but I don't know, Steve, if you're seeing similar things and talking to business owners, that the struggle is real, at least from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, even between fellow owner operators, it's, we're all out there scratching picking up a rock to see if we can find anybody. And it's getting competitive between even local owner operators, to where one operator, 2 miles down the street is offering a higher wage than what you are. And in order to compete, you've got to be able to meet that. And, so that, as you said, Scott, there's a lot of decisions that are being made, from, yes, menu to operating hours to pay. And if I'm a business that is employing individuals that are taking public transportation, and I don't have that anymore, my pool of individuals has just decreased that much more. So personally, personally, I like option 3 best. Looking at the budget, we've got the money for it yet this year. It gives us time, I think, for another year to kind of figure out, what's going on from, again, residual from the pandemic. How many people are using the bus so that we can move forward. But I think at this time, I think we would be shooting ourselves in the foot if we didn't do something and we didn't allow the bus to continue at some capacity. And I think at a reduced capacity and reduced schedule, I think is probably the best option that we can do. So it becomes a win-win situation on the township and also for the local businesses.
I agree. And I agree that option 3 is acceptable. As Steve said, we have the money for it in our budget. We're not taking money away from any other programs or services. And it is something that will provide a tangible benefit to business owners in the district. So that option 3, for those of you who may not be able to see it, is the reduced weekday evening and Saturday. The change would be from 30 minutes all day to on weekdays to 30 minutes until 7 p.m. and then 60 minutes after 7 p.m. And Saturday, the Saturday and Sunday, the routes would be every 60 minutes. So Ben, have you had a chance to do your math?
I did. So the option 3 is a 13.2% reduction over the current service. Option 2 would be a 9.1% reduction over the current service. So definitely not rounding errors. That's significant dollars.
No, that's tangible. That feels real. And I'm so we kind of get a sense of alignment. Option 3, to Steve and Jennifer's point, I think is a very reasonable option, and we're still supporting local businesses in the community.
Right. And to those who have expressed concern about the cost, we're acknowledging that by stepping back from the breadth and the scope of the service provided previously to something that is a lower cost. And if it turns out in the future that it's not a workable schedule, we can revisit it when the contract's up for renewal next year.
I mean, I think that's really smart, considering last time I checked, none of us have been through a pandemic like this before. And I think there's a couple chapters still left to this, and having that option to support the community. And if we're wrong and we had that there as a fail-safe, so be it. If we're right, we're going to be very grateful, because once you say no to a service like this, it's gone. And so I think it's giving us time, and also during overused term, an unprecedented time.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess I would just add one comment that if that's the way you want to go. So, one of the things that was not included in your packet was, a draft contract of the actual terms that you guys wanted. Given the timing required by the rapid, I would ask that you guys approve a contract based on the terms that you set forth, rather than us having to bring the written contract back to the DDA again. I think it was just, as long as the material terms match what you guys have agreed to authorize. I guess because it's a DDA, it would either be Jennifer or Sandra to authorize this contract, and I'll have to figure out exactly whose signature will need to be on it.
Right. I think that is it technically a contract with the township, even though the DDA is providing the funding? I guess that's a particularity that I don't recall.
I need to figure that out.
Right. So let me attempt to carve out a motion here and articulate it in a way that makes sense. I move that we approve a long-term bus contract through, I'm going to forget the date, through May, whatever that date is in May, having the rates articulated in option 3 in the memo, and allowing the contract to be finalized, approved, and executed consistent with those terms. Did that make sense? Can anyone support that?
I support that. I second that.
Further discussion, clarifications, questions? Sandra, did you get that? You'll have to listen to the recording. Okay. All right. Hearing no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Gary said aye, although he's muted. There you are. All opposed? Abstentions? All right, that is unanimously approved. So then after the contract is put together, I'm happy to take a look at it to confirm that it's consistent with what we voted on here today. But I think that the township is the proper contracting authority. So if they need a further directive or conversation with me, I'm happy to help them. So just let me know. Do we
Great,
need to
thanks.
decide or discuss anything else having to do with the bus at this time?
I think that as we get into the evaluation process, we'll probably pull the bus committee back together just so we don't have to take everybody's time, but can figure out what questions you guys want answered. And Max and Nick and Sandra and I can work on the timing on that.
That would be perfect. Yeah. You know, particularly because the Rapid may have more information for us to consider as they go through their own evaluation. So getting that information in advance so that we can make decisions timely for the next contract term would be helpful. So put it on your calendar, Max. Yep. And Ben and Sandra. Thank you so much.
Great. And I am logging off. Thanks, everybody. It was good seeing you.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Thank
and
you.
Max, unless you'd like to stay, and you're welcome to stay, I think that I think we've gotten what we need from you, unless you have questions for us as well.
Nope, not at this time. I just want to say it's been a pleasure, working with you guys on this, and thanks for your patience and dealing with us. And I'm glad we were able to reach a conclusion here, and we'll certainly be in touch via Ben. So yes, thank you all once again.
Very good. Thanks so much. All right, then, moving on to Article 6, which was discuss and consider village flowers and plantings. So Sandra, I know that you included a memorandum.
I did, thank you. So we talked about this briefly at our May meeting. And this request came from Daylily Floral, who would like to do some pots and plantings throughout the Cascade Village. And I met with Mary from Daylily. We did walk the Cascade Road corridor, and she did provide some additional information, which I placed in the packet for your review. So basically, this project would involve approximately, give or take 23 to 25 new planters and concrete bases throughout the district. I did put a map in your packet for you, one that had ortho photography, one that did not. There were lime green markers showing the approximate locations of those planters. The Cascade Road 28th Street intersection would have 2 planters on each corner. And Mary was proposing that those planters change with the seasons, specifically summer, fall, and winter. She was not excited about doing plantings in the spring just because of the lack of plants and because the weather is so, up and down temperatures. So she is proposing summer, fall, and winter. And so then also in addition to the fall plantings, she has proposed tall corn husks on each of the black lamp posts throughout the village as well. Christmas time would be a potted spruce Christmas tree is what she suggested, 6 to 7 inches tall. It can accommodate a solar powered tree topper. So those trees then could then be repurposed or, donated if we see fit. So in addition to this, while we were walking, there's a landscape bed adjacent to the Citgo gas station at the corner of Cascade Road and Old 28th Street. I did put a picture of that in your packet as well. That landscape bed is in rough shape. It's pretty old. It contains a lot of old plantings in there. So we talked about sprucing that up as well. And Mary did contact a friend regarding updating that bed, and we're waiting for additional information on that. So as I mentioned, there is some information in your packet from Mary, a picture of the planter dimensions. And I did meet with a representative from the Kent County Road Commission on site today. We kind of walked the area a little bit. Obviously it comes down to the details, right? Exactly, where these will be located. But he was not opposed to this at all. Obviously there's some requirements as far as, how close to the street they can be and then height. But basically if they're, kind of in line with the existing streetlights or just behind is what they propose. That's what they like to see. And, you know, we talked about going out, if this is something that the DDA is interested in pursuing, we talked about, you know, going out and kind of, you know, X marks the spot, if you will, you know, for planter locations, and then having them come out and take a look at them before we pour any, you know, concrete bases or anything. They can come out and take a peek and see if they meet all their standards. Height requirements, he said 40 inches tall, really, so that there's, you know, sight vision, or not sight vision issues for cars pulling in and out of driveways and so forth. So, and that 40 inches would be, you know, the base, the pot, and the plants within the pot. So that's what they like to see. So, looking for some direction from the DDA on this, you know, what you guys are thinking, if this is something you'd like to move forward with. In full disclosure, I did receive another email today from Triple R Lawn and Landscape, who is situated in the village as well, who is also would like to kind of spruce up, if you will, the village area with some seasonal colors. And, you know, she is looking for some direction from us also. Is this something we'd be interested in? You know, do we want the two of them to work together? Do we want her to come and present some options? I'm looking for some direction from, you know, the DDA board on that as well. One other thing we would have to consider is irrigation. We do not have irrigation from 28th Street up towards the Cascade Hospital for Animals. And I think that's something we would have to install some drip lines. I don't think we could rely on private property systems, you know, to do what we need to get done so that these plants would thrive. We do have some irrigation in the like in the core village area from 28th Street down towards Thornapple River Drive. So we would have to have somebody, our irrigation contractor, come out and take a look at our system and, you know, determine where we would need to install some drip lines and so forth. What I have for you right now, let me know if you have questions. I know there's just a lot of details that would have to be worked out on this type of project. Mary would love to have this up and running by fall. I'm just quite honestly, I'm not sure that that is feasible. Maybe the corn husks would be feasible for fall, but I'm not sure, you know, by the time you have to pour some concrete bases, which would, you know, potentially could be about $1,000 per base, you know, by the time you, you know, smooth out an area and get the base poured. And so there's obviously costs involved with that as well. But so there's a lot of details to work out. But if this is something that the DDA is interested in, we can certainly keep pursuing it. Or I'm very open to, you know, ideas and suggestions. So,
Steve, is that a hand?
I do have a hand. So just I guess clarify for me, Sandra, if I am understanding some of this stuff. So first of all, I guess during the Christmas time, it's not a 6 to 7 foot tree, it's a 6 to 7 inch tree, and that's $200 per pot.
correct. Inches
Okay.
and per pot, yes.
I mean, we're talking
Small.
and that's why,
Fairly-
yeah. So when I did some quick math here as we were talking, and with pots, for 25 pots, it'd be about $13,000. And then with the base you just mentioned, that's another 25,000. So now we're up to 38,000 just for the pots and the base. $5,000 to put the fall plants in. Another 1,800 to 2,900, depending upon who installs corn husks. Christmas, almost $7,000 for 6 to 8 inch Christmas trees with LED lights. So looking at this, we're talking, and then summer's not even included. And so if we budgeted $200 per pot for summer flowers, that's another $5,000. So with the bases and irrigation and soil. So without irrigation and soil, we're talking already $56,000 to put 1 year's worth of flowers. Granted, the second year, you wouldn't have the $13,000 for the pots. However, to me, that's a lot of money. I think the flowers would be beautiful. I think the pots, the price of the pots, that's accurate for those Wausau tile pots. But I could see going to Coutsier's and saying, what would it cost us to fill this pot with your annual flowers, and probably save $150 per pot. Again, I'm not saying that what she has to offer may not be worth it, but that's a lot of money to put plants out. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I share that concern, particularly because we don't have information about the irrigation, and Lord knows how much more money that will cost, and that will be additional disruption to the area to get irrigation installed, even if it is just a drip line. And I feel like we have not enough information, and then it would be helpful to have these isolated into individual projects, because something like the corn husk idea seems easy, probably relatively inexpensive. It might be something that we consider, and that's not something that takes a lot of infrastructure. You know, this idea though of installing the pots, I'm not opposed to considering it, but I feel like we need to know a lot more, and we need to take it into consideration with our budgeting process before we move forward. And Sandra raised a good point. If there's other companies in our district who are also interested, we should be encouraging collaboration. You know, if two companies are willing to work together, great. If not, then we should bid for it. So I'm not opposed to learning more and pursuing something, but I certainly don't feel like I'm in a place where I can approve anything tonight.
Hey, Sandra, the big bowls that I think there are, what, maybe half a dozen of them?
There's about 10 of
Are
them.
all-
Yep,
Okay, that are existing.
yes.
So one, maybe this is a real aesthetic issue for me, but we already have those, and then we want to change to something else, which I feel a little like if we're going to expand, you know, the plantings and whatever, then it would be nice if we could be consistent throughout the township. I mean, that's just real high level surface aesthetic issue for me. But, and I agree with Jennifer, your point about this is a much bigger project with the irrigation and everything, and probably should be something that, you know, if we decide to expand the plantings, that we can be thoughtful about it and then ask for proposals. I know Rook's Landscaping used to do the big pots, and they did a fabulous job. And so if we, you know, want to take some time and expand and ask for proposals, basically have companies bid on, you know, that bigger project. And maybe in the meantime, we could look at asking for proposals on doing the existing bowls or planters, because when our discussion last month, it was that the grounds department is doing it, and they really don't have design background, and you know, so maybe they would be happy that we took that off their plate, spend less money, but really sort of spruce things up a little bit. And maybe even that bed that you said, you know, is in need of some updating, you know, and start small and then look at a bigger program to do an expansion of those bowls or planters or whatever they are, but be thoughtful about, you know, from a branding standpoint for the township, we should have consistency.
And I did talk to Mary, you know, I asked her that same question, quite honestly, Michelle. I said, you know, we have these existing pots, why not just, you know, continue with those? And, you know, these other ones, those are somewhat wider. These are a little bit smaller in stature, if you will. So that was, that was her idea with that. I think also this could potentially, like you said, maybe you do start on a much smaller scale. Maybe you scale this back and you don't do the entire village right now, but maybe you do from, Cascade Road and 28th Street to Old 28th. There, I think there's ways that you could start small and then add to if you need to.
There have been a
Or
couple
want to.
people that asked me, like, why don't they put a planter out in front of, where the web development company has moved into the old Sheldon cleaners and, in those areas where we already have irrigation that we could put, it's sort of like, maybe we can do it smaller, use what's already there that isn't going to cost a lot more money, and just add to what's already existing and improve upon what's existing.
And some of that area, in walking with Mary and walking with the road commission, some of that area, especially as you get closer to Thornapple River Drive, it's quite narrow through there. There's not a lot of room for some pots, and specifically that corner, that you mentioned, Michelle, with the IT, the old Sheldon cleaners. There's some sight vision, issues there.
There's already traffic issues there with getting in and out, and
yes,
it can be a real nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, so we would have to be very selective, and obviously, again, road commission would have to approve any locations anyway. So, but we would just have to watch, where we would locate those.
It seems prudent to start with perhaps the replanting of that bed that you included in the packet by the gas station, because that does look a little rough. And it would be a definable project. So if we're going to divide out these projects, that would be one. The planters would be another, and then I would call additional decorations like the corn husk or whatever would be kind of something else, because it would be more temporary. But certainly something permanent like the planters. I'm hesitant to even start on a phase of that without having an idea of the broader scope and the projected total cost if we were to go all the way through it. It's just like putting in, sidewalks or bike paths. I mean, we have to know what the entire project will look like at the end in order to break it into phases. So I'm not comfortable blessing any move forward with that until we have a better grasp about things like, what type of containers do we want to be consistent? Do we want to make a change? Irrigation costs, the dirt issue, and all those other things that would be involved. So, I don't know whether we want to go through the hassle of putting together an RFP and I guess I defer to you about what you think the best way to solicit that sort of proposal would be, but certainly we would want to get a lot more information about the total project before we move forward with that.
The only other thing that concern is even too great a word, but is when you look at all of these parts and pieces, which we're all sort of talking about, would it be helpful to look for whether it's some sort of cooperative of companies that can offer the whole thing, or somebody who has all of the capabilities, because otherwise this is going to fall on somebody's shoulders, to basically GC this project while, they're overseeing all of these different things. So I guess I would just say, the capability or the capabilities that a vendor can bring to the table to manage this whole thing, I think is really important.
And frankly, we would also need to have included, and I may be missing it in the information that you provided, but I don't see anything in here about maintenance costs. And there would certainly, if it's anything like my garden, there will be maintenance costs. People are going to have to weed, they're going to have to prune. in between the changing out of the planting. So I think we need to get a handle on that as well.
Yeah, and I think, the thought was our buildings and grounds department would do a lot of that work, so.
Okay.
Have we thought of seeking to get input from other communities? And the only reason I bring that up is my wife and I, we were up in Rockford this past weekend, and they had some beautiful flower pots on their corners, some nice big ones. To find out what barriers did they run into, from irrigation to, who's taking care of them? How have they, do they do something rotation wise throughout the different seasons? I'm never afraid to cheat off the smart kids. If they've already figured it out, why start from ground zero?
Amen.
So at least to get some good talking points, I think. And we live somewhat close to East Grand Rapids, and granted theirs are up on the poles. They've got the irrigation going up there, and that's a whole different thing. But they also have flower pots on the sidewalks too, and they look beautiful. So
Yep.
I just throw that out there too, instead of just starting from nothing.
Yep, I can certainly do that.
And I don't see this as a rush project. I mean, the time isn't right for planting anyway. And so, if we can start this process so that we're looking forward to next budget year, next season of planting, then I think that we can make some more informed decisions about a direction.
I think for me, one of the most exciting things out of this was that a local business saw an opportunity for the community.
Yeah.
And said, hey, is there something that, this is the way it's supposed to work, is, bubbling up to the DDA and saying, hey, let's make an improvement. I do like that flower garden thing. I take it that property belongs to the township and it's not the gas station.
There is a small portion that is actually on the gas station property. The rest of it's in the road right of way and or township. So, we'd have to work with the gas station for a small part of it.
Because I know that, we've always talked about, I can't remember what the word is now, some kind of banner or something, as folks are coming over the bridge to the, Old Town or the village. What a great place, I think, to have something like the Cascade swoop that we've got out there by the hotel out by Scott there, and even and or a water feature or something, with some bright, colorful flowers and plants. A great opportunity to introduce the Cascade village and the township.
I think the only thing I would tack on, because this has been a great discussion, is that if we have anything in the near term, like in the next 3 to 4 years, that I've seen plans where we've put potted plants out near the roadway to slow down traffic in that corridor of Cascade, or I've seen a roundabout, and those might be even much farther out. But if there's something we are considering in that area, that's where you couple that with the flowers and that investment, if we're able to kind of do both. So I don't know in terms of if that's far out, Sandra, or if it's kind of one of those big pie in the sky, or that might be something we might be considering.
And it's a real good point, because they talked at the board meeting a bit about traffic flow and trying to, and I mean, we as a DDA have made improvements in the past to control speed on Cascade Road, but we definitely want to be aligned with what the board is discussing, because if they're going to be making changes, we do not want to spend a bunch of money only to have to rip it all out because of some plan that the board is undertaking on their own.
Right.
Thank you for saying it's so much better than I did.
No, you identified it. That's awesome. Do you feel that you have enough information from us?
Yes. Would you like to table this item? We can keep working on it, and I can bring it back at a future meeting. I can also meet with this Triple R Lawn and have some conversations with them as well.
Yes, I'll move to table this item. Any support for that motion?
I support.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that item is tabled.
I'm sorry, who supported that? I'm sorry.
I believe it was
Renee did.
Renee.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
All right
Okay,
then.
we'll keep working on it.
Moving on to Article 7, which is to discuss and consider DDA sponsorship for the Cascade Metro Cruise warm-up event. Hooray! So this is a happening event.
Yay,
Fingers
so
crossed.
this is happening this year. We are scaling back a little bit, but the committee met and they are very excited about this. So for those of you maybe who aren't familiar, or it's actually been a couple years, this is held at the Thornapple Center down at Cascade Road and 28th Street, kind of in that bowling warehouse parking lot, if you will. And obviously it was canceled last year because of COVID. It's always been a very popular event in the past. It brings a lot of people into the Cascade community as well as our business district. And I think it's just a great way to, also showcase Cascade and what we have out here in our businesses. So the DDA plan does allow the DDA board to create, manage, and support annual events occurring within the district. And this certainly has been an annual event in the past. So the DDA has always been a great partner when it comes to this event and a great supporter. In the past, we have had, not only has the DDA contributed and been a sponsor for this event, but we also have, talked to our business community for sponsorships. And quite honestly, this year after the pandemic, the committee is just not comfortable going to businesses for sponsorships. And so for that reason, the committee is asking for $10,000 in sponsorship money for the event this year. Generally, the DDA gives anywhere from like 5 to 7 to 8,000. So we are requesting 10,000. That does fall within our budget. We do have a pretty small budget. We kind of have things, nailed down to after all these years. So we are eliminating a couple of the kids events as far as a bounce house and the dunk tank, but we'll still have food trucks for the event. We will have the face painting, the balloon lady will be there. We'll have a band again this year, same band as 2019, Soul Syndicate. They were great. We received wonderful comments about them. So it will still be a great event. We'll just scale it back a little bit and continue to move forward. So again, with that, staff is requesting $10,000 for the sponsorship.
Questions? Comments? Would anyone like to make a motion? That dog just really wants to participate.
Squirrels.
Dog's
Squirrels.
upset about the bounce house. That's
Yeah.
what I heard. I don't know. Anything else
So
heard?
I will make a motion to approve a $10,000 donation to the Metro Cruise warm-up held in August.
Second.
Gary, is that a second?
Second. Just
Very
want to get
good.
on record for one thing tonight.
Very excellent. Thank you. Questions, comments? All right, all in favor of the motion? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. I'll expect to see all of you there.
It'll be a fun time. Let me just get back, and I apologize. My husband has apparently started mowing the lawn, so we're gonna have some background noise here as we finish up. Article 8, discuss meeting location status.
So thank you. So at the time when I wrote the memo, we were talking about, emergency orders, and if it gets extended, things could change. I learned today that Kent County will not be extending the emergency order. And so moving forward, we will be meeting in person. And I guess we have a couple different options, if you will, that we can talk about tonight. We could do, these meetings are held at the Wisner Center. We could do a hybrid meeting, which consists of, obviously, you know, the board has to be in person at the meeting, staff will have to be there. But that gives an option for us to continue Zoom virtual meetings for any residents or applicants to attend, you know, virtually if they can't make it in person, and or for you know, comments from the public virtually as well. We could strictly do in person, and you know, that's it. They have to come to the meeting if they would like to provide comments or see what's going on. We could have a static camera, if you will. So we would be there obviously in person. We would have a camera static that would be recording the meetings for us. And we just couldn't have that virtual interaction, if you will, with residents. So our meetings, as you know, are recorded right now. They are posted on the website via YouTube for the world to watch anyway. So we do have a couple options. I'm looking for some direction from the board to, you know, as far as what your preference is. So the Zoom meetings do require extra staff. Just giving information, do require extra staff there to, you know, run the Zoom and, you know, take comments from the public. Obviously, just doing strictly in person and or just a static camera, you know, would just require most likely just myself, staff wise at these meetings. So the board has been doing the hybrid version at their meetings, and the planning commission has done a couple, well, one of those at their meeting.
So I'm curious, how is the technology working for those hybrid meetings?
It can be a little clunky sometimes. You know, we have had issues where maybe audio has gone out. Sometimes the camera, you know, will quick drop and then come back up. So it can be, you know, a little clunky here and there.
I mean, I like the reach that a hybrid meeting would provide. That said, we do not have a history of broad public participation in our meetings. So given that it's a little bit clunky to use and would require extra staff, I lean toward just having our meetings in person.
And there may be the ability to, you know, start in person. And if we, you know, technology improves a little bit, I'm sure we could, you know, change that if we wanted to. So.
Agreed. Other thoughts?
I would agree based on those exact same comments that there's not much public participation. I do like the transparency aspect of things, to be able to let anybody who wants to communicate if they're not able to be at the meeting in person. But if we start out in person, to Sandra's point, and we can transfer into a virtual, allowing other people, then let's do that.
I do maybe see the benefit of having a static camera, just so people can watch. I mean, I would think that people are more apt to watch a meeting as opposed to read through the transcript if there's a transcript available. What are people's thoughts on that? Does anyone have a strong feeling pro or con recording the meetings? It might interfere with our bundt cake and Culver's custard consumption.
I mean, it could be good for business too. No, I'm all kidding aside. I think for what we do, I think it adds a level of transparency and engagement. I don't see a downside to it, to be completely honest. And frankly, if we have to pivot and go to a hybrid, we're already halfway there, right? And it's technology improves. So I think that's a great idea.
So do you need a vote from us, Sandra, or are you just looking for kind of a direction?
Let's do a vote, please.
Okay. we're getting to the end of the meeting, so I'll just make a motion. I'll move that we resume having meetings in person, but that we have a static camera recording the meetings, and the recording will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel after the meeting concludes.
Second.
I'll second.
I heard Gary and then I heard Michelle. Pick one who hasn't seconded another motion.
Michelle.
And it might, we'll give it to Michelle.
There we go.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The dog is so funny. All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Limping along to the finish here. Article 9, any other business? Sandra, Robinson Dental Brownfield update.
I'll just give you a quick update on that. I'm trying to think, at the board meeting in May, the Brownfield plan for Robinson Dental was approved by the Township Board. We had until June 1 to submit their proposal and application, which we did. And so it is now in the hands of State Eagle. They are doing their final review, and we are just waiting for a decision from them, basically. As you know, they already have shown their support for the project, so I don't anticipate any hiccups with this. But it just has to go through the proper channels, and we are just waiting for a final review. We anticipate, maybe by the end of the month that we will have that, and or before. So once we get that, there's obviously a few, extra steps we have to take as far as the Brownfield board is concerned. But then Robinson Dental can get started on their project. So that's all I have for that. Yep.
Questions about that? Hearing none, moving on to the strategic plan meeting.
So at this time, we have our next DDA meeting is scheduled for July 20. And at this time, we are planning on that being a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. Really, it's going to be a strategic plan meeting with the DDA and the Planning Commission. Preferably, it would be best probably not to have anything else on that agenda if possible. If something comes up, Jennifer, you and I can chat about that and see how we want to handle that. But I know we've done that in the past, for these joint meetings, and it's always a little clunky when you've got other items on the agenda as well. So we can kind of see how that plays out. But just plan on that meeting at 5:30 at this time. That will be the strategic plan meeting in person at the Wisner Center. So
Just to get a sense of what will be involved, is this the beginning of the strategic plan process? Are they soliciting comments from board members about certain initiatives?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what their schedule is. I think they will have a few meetings under their belt by the time it is June, isn't it? That's
I
only
know,
next month.
when
Yeah.
you said the next meeting was July, I thought, oh, are we skipping a meeting?
I
Oh,
know that. That just threw me off too for a minute. So yes, they may have a meeting with the Township Board under the belt at that point. But I'm not sure exactly how many, public comment sessions they'll have done by then and so forth. So, but it will be a little earlier in the process for them.
It's as if he planned the mowing to happen during this meeting. My apologies. Any questions about that strategic planning meeting? Any other business that anyone has questions about or would like to discuss or raise? All right.
Does
hearing
anybody
none,
know what the, I do. Anybody know what the status is of the Tommy's Car Wash?
So that went through the Planning Commission, maybe last month or not too long ago. And my understanding is they recommended the Tommy's as well as a coffee shop on the site. And so I think they will be, moving that forward. So. Yep, you're muted, Jennifer.
Sorry about
Yep.
that. And I got the big warning that I was muted. Any other business or questions about any of the items that we've discussed? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Anyone?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Gary, thank you.
I second.
Thanks, Renee.
And we're
All in
bringing-
favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a
Thank
great-
you.
Thought that maybe today would be back down to an hour, our old meeting length, but we did get a lot accomplished. So thank you so much, everyone. Go enjoy some of this nice weather.
Mm.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.